So I pressed record.
Okay. Well, I guess we're really starting this thing now.
It's been a long time coming.
It really has, yeah.
It's quite funny, actually, what it takes to just have like a normal conversation like we have almost every day, but then to actually record it.
Yeah.
It took us some time.
Some internal resistance, some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Some timings with the planets and everything.
Timing, stuff happening, but maybe this is actually like the best time to start it.
Maybe, I mean, we're starting it, so it must be, I guess.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's also sometimes how I think astrology also works, that it just happens at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also plan it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, maybe I'm going to do this at this time. But then, yeah, that's kind of like a human way of looking at it because the things just happen
Also,
at the time that
how they are supposed to happen. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the paradox of life. You're immediately starting the podcast.
Definitely, yeah.
So things are just happening, but we also have free will to make things happen. But that free will is also just happening.
It's a very interesting paradox, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what our podcast and the thing that we actually want to bring to the world. That's actually is kind of what we bring to the world, like this balancing of the paradox.
Yeah. How would you describe it? Because we always talk about polarities. Depolarizing yourself, and that there are two polarities, and that you kind of, that the truth is never one-sided, that it's never about one polarity, but it's always about, everything has two sides, or at least, you can divide those two sides into multiple sides again, and you can get unlimited sides to something. But in general, you can say, well, if something has an opposite, so it has two sides, and there's two polarities. So when you explain it to people, how do you explain it?
Yeah, it's kind of like, something that I sometimes still try to think about. What is actually the best way to explain it? Because sometimes it's like so natural for us, like just to talk about it. One simple way to explain it is just, it's like intent and freedom of outcome.
Okay.
So everything is just, okay, you can initiate something, but at the same time you want to let go.
Yeah.
So you have people like, maybe like an Eckhart Tolle. He talks a little bit more about letting go and just being present. But then the other side is like, okay, you can actually create your entire reality.
Like a Tony Robbins.
Yeah, and like that's the personal development kind of view. But then also you could say, that if you take a more spiritual lens, like, you can manifest certain things. But then in the end, everything also just happens. So
yeah, and it's about your intention and then letting go of the outcome of that intention, or basically opening yourself up to whatever may happen, but at the same time, and being okay and not really wanting it or needing it. And then at the same time, really putting your intent there. And that's sort of the paradox, because why would you want to put your intent there if you don't really need or want it? And if you can't force yourself also to not need or want something. So that's an interesting process to learn to let go and go into that energy, and then to really go for it still, because that's where the goal is, right? So it's like surfing between those two energies of where you're putting in your intent, you're taking action, you're really going for something. But when you start forcing that, that's when you're losing the other side, where you're too much wanting something to happen in a certain way, and then you're not letting go. You're not opening yourself up. You're not just going with the flow. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to balance that.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like if I take myself, for example, like I am quite inclined to taking action and setting an intention and then making a plan and then trying to go for it. But then the other side is really, there's some kind of like non-action.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, can you also let go of the action? But that's also in some way you could say an action.
Yeah.
So you can also do letting go, but it's not really like a doing.
I mean, to initiate it probably.
Yeah, to be conscious of it also. Like, okay, one simple way to do it is just, okay, I'm going to feel all the feelings that I'm feeling right now. I just had like a little bit like, I looked at the screen. I'm like, okay, is my face like completely visible? And then I actually had this like same moment, like, okay, shall I just have the intent to let go? So it was quite funny, like even in those moments you can have that, and then I was like, okay, shall I just accept it the way it is? And I think that's kind of like like a funny thing that happens constantly in life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you accept things the way they are?
Yeah.
Or are you like inclined, okay, am I now going to do some kind of action to change it? But sometimes the way to change it is to completely accept it, because then it can actually change.
A lot of times it is actually the case. But it's interesting because sometimes there's this uncertainty. That's what I often experience then. You're like, okay, I can just let it go, but is that the right move at this moment? Or is there still an action that I can do to make it better?
That's the thing.
And that's and then that, to kind of find that certainty of, okay, I can just let it go. That's kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also that, certain people are more inclined to, okay, I'm just going to take the action and change my circumstances. So it's like really more doers. Maybe it's also a bit more a masculine trait. Okay, I'll just, if I want something, I just take the actions and I get there.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little bit more feminine approach is like, oh, okay, I'll just like attract it and like it will come my way.
The flow.
But then, sometimes if you do that too much, nothing happens. But if you take too much action, then it's really forced. So, it's always like the art of life, I guess, right? Like to find that balance. And it's sometimes also quite interesting that so little people are like not aware of that, like that it's actually like really a thing.
I have to say.
And that is where it actually starts. Also, when we made the meditation course, like what is the essence of meditation? You focus on a meditation object like your breath or maybe the present moment or some other thing like your heart. But then at the same time, you let go.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself kind of like in the middle.
Yeah, that's you're surfing in between. Yeah. That's when you're having no thoughts at all. You can be like, and then there's a moment there's like, you can go out of it by maybe too much letting go where you're not focusing anymore.
That's the thing.
Or maybe you're focusing too much and that's you're like trying to make it, I have to meditate right. And then you're also not, really in that sweet spot. Yeah. So it's an interesting, actually meditation is a really nice way to practice dancing between these energies. So that's why it's a very valuable life skill, probably one of the big basics that we often even forget about.
Definitely,
talking about so many advanced techniques and everything. But meditation itself, just the meditation on the breath is just one of the most valuable things you can do and actually learn to do. And then start doing that in your daily life because your whole life can become like a meditation, basically.
Yeah, and that's quite funny. If you meditate long enough, then life really does become like a meditation because then you also have that experience. Everything is either you're focusing your awareness on something to maybe increase it, the idea of where your attention goes, you create more of.
Your energy flows.
Yeah, and then the other side is, okay, can you let this little frame of reality go? And then sometimes it can be so like that you're like attached to this frame. You're texting a girl and then suddenly she doesn't respond. Or you did something well in the business, but suddenly it went wrong. Then it's like, okay, you can hold on to that. Like, okay, can you also let go? And then maybe once you actually honestly let go, then maybe like a couple hours later, the girl just,
it happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like, how are we so connected, like energetically, that if you're like, oh, okay, but like now I'm really attached to this thing because I think this external thing might fulfill me in some kind of way. But if you're like, okay, I find the fulfillment within, I let go. And then suddenly that thing can come to you because you're nowhere.
Then you don't need it.
Yeah, but then you don't need it. Yeah, I mean, that.
But usually then if you notice it, then, it pops up. Oh, wait. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, do I still want it even? Like,
yeah, and that's actually also a funny thing that you can have.
But the thing that was interesting, I think, is like, you can notice it, what you were talking about, like, for instance, in a dating context.
Yeah.
Like there, you can notice it quite well. That if somebody, or even just like people on the street, like a bum on the street who really needs you to give them money or something, right? So, I mean, I really feel for these people who are living on the streets, but often there's this repulsive energy because they are in this state of this lack, of this needing. To them, it's not, they really need it. And it's that energy that is repulsive to people. Like, or when you have a friend and they're just a little bit stalker, or, they're like texting you like too much in wrong times and it's a bit weird. And they if you say no, they keep asking and you just really can feel that energy, that they really need it. Like, then you start to become repulsed a bit, like, oh, this is too much. Like, it's, this person is trying to suck energy. It's not losing energy, and that's actually repulsing. But that's very, you can notice that with people, but that's probably what's happening like with everything, like with things in life and the way, why things appear in our lives. If we need them too much, we're actually pushing them away on like sort of a quantum level or whoever you call it. Yeah. And it's just funny how that's, how you can kind of feel those energies, especially with people, you can notice that, but then think about how that goes for the rest of your life, basically.
Definitely. I just kind of thought like, you have the law of attraction. Yeah. So that's, one way you could call it, right? So that's one side of the polarity. But then you could also say it's like the law of, repulsion.
Yeah. Nobody ever talks about the law of repulsion.
Like that's like equally important, right? Like,
even more, because a lot of that's what we do more.
Probably, because we're more focused on the negative as human beings, like our brain.
Don't have this, I want this.
And it's like, but the lack. Yeah, okay, I don't want that lack. Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, if you don't have money, if you don't have that love, or if you don't have, some friends that you would, like a fast car, like a nice house or something
you want, huh?
Yeah, definitely. But if you're attached to it, like, you need that. What happened?
My water fell on it.
Your water. That's okay. Well, that's okay. As long as
there's no real water on the floor.
And basically, that idea that you're so attached to that thing, but then you actually also push it further away. Yeah, because you're not actually in the vibration to receive that thing by itself, but it's more you're more actually in the lack of that, and that can be like literally a biochemical addiction. Yeah, like you're literally in the cycle of lack and the cycle of not having this. And that can also be your comfort zone. So this is something, like definitely if you go deeper into certain manifestation teachings. And I've definitely found parts in myself that, feel a little bit more safe with the current status quo. But to say consciously that I want a lot of certain things, but then, maybe like, afraid to go really deep with somebody and have a relationship or something, or like maybe a lot of money, but that also somewhere in the subconscious mind can be something that also has negative. So it's like the unknown basically, and then
So what you're saying is basically that you can be addicted to your current state, which you say that you want something. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have a lot of money. I want to have this beautiful relationship or travel the world or whatever
it is.
And then you can be in a certain situation, but actually deep down, there's a big part of yourself that is addicted to your current circumstances and sort of afraid of like the unknown, because you've not really maybe experienced those things to the extent that you want to, and then but it's a little bit foreign, and like the as they say, the unconscious mind is afraid of the unknown.
That's the thing.
So and so you can be a familiar hell, like can be something that you can prefer over an unfamiliar heaven. Which is a very strange concept to wrap your head around, but it's also not about consciously, because consciously somebody would say that they want change, but how many people do actually change? Like people often have all these dreams, but there's not that many people who really realize their full potential in this life. And I mean, what is your full potential? You could have a whole argument about that. But
also a thing,
people say they want something, but often they don't have the actions or they're not doing the things to actually get there, because they're probably slacking and afraid of actually doing the thing.
I agree with that. I think it's always like, looking at how are the current states and the current situations in your life somehow fulfilling your desires. Yeah. Like, I like that quote. How does it go again? Like, having is evidence of wanting. Yeah. So it is really, that in some sense you want those things, or you believe like, you don't deserve more. Like the classic example is, of course, a woman who stays in a relationship with an abusive boyfriend or husband and just stays in that. And but he's also sweet or something like that, and then, maybe later, they do break up, and then the narrative becomes a bit different. It's like, he was like such a narcissist.
Yeah, then she switches, you mean? So at the moment, it's a different point switch.
We can also talk about, which is interesting. But just that situation of like, like you cannot say that you consciously would want that maybe as a woman, but then again, like maybe there is a part that feels like, oh, that is the way that she maybe receives love. That's actually connected, maybe due to some childhood experience.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, there has to be. Often there's a trauma.
Yeah. So and then that trauma has a certain vibration, and then you could say that actually attracts that situation, so it can actually be healed. That does, of course, not mean that somebody should stay in that situation to learn something or something like that. But the fact is that they are there probably also as a soul to learn something. But that's like,
I mean, the first lesson would be to get out of that situation. And then to heal that part that is actually sort of or that familiarity or that maybe that strategy to get love to somebody who treats you like shit. That has to then change, but it can be hard for people. Because the unconscious mind rules your life. I don't know what is the quote, like until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. By Carl Jung, and that's so true. It is, because what is the unconscious? It is literally unconscious, so you're not aware of it.
Good point.
And you're not aware of what you're not aware of. So to make the unconscious slowly conscious, if you learn something about yourself, if you're in a situation and you're finally getting some realizations about it, or you're kind of wondering, like, why do I keep attracting these types of people? Why are these patterns reoccurring in my life? And then you slowly, by analyzing that and by having the guts to actually, take some responsibility to do that, that's how you slowly make it conscious, and then you can change it. It starts to change just by the act of just shining the light on it in this dark. You shine the light on this thing in the unconscious, the darkness, and through that it becomes, that's enlightenment. Slowly making all those things come to the surface until till they're fully lit up, which is almost an impossible process, probably. But I think that's it.
Definitely, that's a very important part of the process. I would say, that's then an integration of darkness and light. So, and then this is really where the paradox comes into play, that like people want to manifest all good things and have a good life, but without going into actually their darkness or the darkness. You cannot actually really find out what's maybe sabotaging you, or actually going into that darkness and finding like the gold that is actually there that can propel you to the next level. In the darkness, you will find your brightest light. But if you only go into the light, then at some point it is also darkness.
It becomes,
because it's like yin and yang. People who are over polarized to the light and only identified with the light, what happens to them? They have a lot of shadows. So they actually create darkness because they're not aware of the darkness that is also within them. So I do think, like, in this world, you really see that also with certain religions like Christianity and Islam and Judaism. It's a bit more focused on the light, and demons are bad and darkness is bad and light is good, and all these things. But if you actually make the darkness more sacred, then you can actually learn to really transmute it and bring it to a higher level, to make it sacred. And then at that point, then you can really integrate them both. And then you have power, but you also have love. And then you can be a much more effective person in this world, I would say.
Yeah, I think making it sacred. The issue is a little bit, I think, that people, that's what polarization does. Because we're talking about these two energies, these two poles to existence, polarity. But in religion, and not just religion, actually in most things in society, we look at things in this sort of black or white type of mentality. Like it's either this or this, and something is either good or bad. And that is a polarity, of course. And when you see, because like in the bad, there is also good, and in the good, there is also bad. So it's like the yin yang sign. And like, that's the whole thing that's sometimes so hard to grasp, I think, for people. Because most people, they just look, no, but I have to do this, that is good, and I have to do that, that's bad. And so those people are bad and those people are good. And it's just not how it is. It's just that you can find both in both things. And that's why like by actually getting that perception or by realizing that truth about reality, that's when you can actually start to see that, oh wait, there is actually gold inside of this darkness that but you have to kind of grasp that it's not that black or white. And for people, that's just easy to understand, because a paradox seems like it's not. It's like it's like both. How is it possible? Like it's almost this contradictory things. Yeah. And I think people will probably notice that in this podcast we'll say things that seem to contradict each other. Our intention is to always merge these polarities and sort of show like this, they both have value, and sort of how do they fit, in each other, sort of. But still, like, there will be contradictions in the things that we say, and that's the nature of reality. The truth is never one-sided. There's always another side to it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, definitely an interesting thing for people that are listening to our podcast to kind of learn that also. So why do you think that is that it's so black and white that people kind of have more that mentality on planet Earth at the moment?
Why that is? I mean, you could say that is a consciousness level, maybe. But it's also just the way we are raised. Like it's something like you just said, like it's in religion, but it's in politics. It's like you could choose your left or your right, or sometimes there's people who are sort of center, but it is sometimes they don't even realize that there's another paradigm, like that's like outside of that. In religion, like, oh, you go to hell, you have to obey these rules, else you go to hell. Yeah. And if you do this, then you go to heaven. But only this religion is right. The other ones are all bad. And so we teach love and acceptance and forgiveness in this religion, but we kill all the other ones. Like there's so many contradictions of, this bad being in this sort of good, pretending that they are the good side and then doing all the bad things. Like it's so double. You can see it. You can already, when you look at those things, you can see that those are not fully good. There is bad inside of it. Yeah. So, that it's just you have to open up yourself to kind of start looking at those things. And nobody ever taught us, Thomas. That's the whole thing. We had to find this out by ourselves.
Yeah, that's our journey. Yeah. And also the gift that we can give to the world. Yeah, now I would say. And it's an interesting thing that that's so prevalent. You have to pick a side. Because it's also really like, you pick the side and then you really identify with it in this world. You're either like a Democrat or a Republican, or like, are you a mix of that? No, you really have to choose. Are you team red or you're team blue?
Exactly, yeah.
Do you like the light or do you like the darkness? Or like, what? Like, you need to pick. And then there is value in picking sometimes, but being really polarized and really attached to your identity, that can really create a lot of problems. Because that is actually how all conflicts happen. Like, how do wars start? It's usually because one side thinks like, oh, I am right about this thing. And then the other side thinks like, okay, like I'm right about this thing. And then, there's some kind of clash. And that is how wars happen. And that is the reason why there is so much conflict on planet Earth right now. Because people are just very polarized and really thinking that their side of the truth is the only way. Yeah. While there is also the other side. And then if you could actually like look at the other side and be really open-minded, then you could actually learn from the other side, because everything has like benefits and drawbacks. And it's quite funny, like if you talk with people, how fast, if you share like a little bit of a deeper idea, maybe some spiritual concept or like things about spirituality. Oh, no, I don't believe in that. No, it's all science. Yeah, science has its benefits. But it also has its drawbacks. And then spirituality, it has its benefits, also drawbacks. So if you merge the two, then they are better than, just being them separate. Because you can merge them and then it becomes something more. And I think that's really where also the gold lies in reality creation. You can merge desires. You can, really look at, okay, these polarities, I'm going to merge them, light and dark. And spiritual and scientific, or like rational and intuitive, like merge them.
Rational, yeah, it's interesting. I think like that's so hard for people to understand, I think, most of the times. And not that we are so much in the high horse, by the way.
We just like to do this every day. So basically,
we talked about this a lot. So, we can talk about how we discovered this thing, because I feel like, it's almost like, what are we talking about? Maybe somebody's even like listening, and they're like, what are they saying? Like, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it makes total sense.
It's all the thing is that also that, like, this is not a topic you can think you understand it, but you can get, like, there can be an awareness that grows about it, which is an other level of understanding, not just in words.
Definitely,
because we're talking about something that is. We're talking about the nature of reality, of this existence here, which is duality. We're swimming in duality. These just two poles, and they are also called masculine and feminine, because one side could be attributed to sort of have masculine sort of traits or characteristics, and one feminine characteristics. That's still also like it's also not black and white. Sometimes they seem to switch. Like, was this the feminine pole or was that the masculine pole?
Oh, yeah.
It's very, that's...
And then you can also further divide feminine and masculine. So feminine, you can divide in the earth and water.
Yeah, the 4 elements. Yeah, like the fire is masculine, and water and earth is feminine. And yeah, because you could say that, okay, air is like it blows, for instance, or it's like water, it's like an initiating sort of a action-taking energy. Fire is like you're fiery, it's like a masculine fire. But then water is like very fluid and like just, flows, adaptable, that adapts to everything. And earth is just like, you cannot, it's almost...
Yeah, it's very stable.
Yeah, stable. It's...
sort of nature.
So very interesting to also see that around us. And, we have, like, you see it everywhere. Everything has 2 sides. There's a daytime and there's a nighttime.
Definitely, yeah.
Like, imagine if there's a sun and a moon. Like, it's in everything. We live in this spiritual sort of reality. I always find it interesting when somebody asks me that, what is spirituality to you? Like, it is like, what are you swimming in it? Everything. Yeah, we're swimming in it, and that's always so interesting. I used to not think about it like that. It's like I didn't understand it, but like, that's almost like, it's almost really weird for somebody like to say like there is nothing, like it's just science, but like, what is this then? What is this experience you're having? You're just like, that you're not taking that into account. The fact that you have consciousness, that there is an experience at all is a miracle. Like, but at the same time, that is what it is. That is everything that is. So there is also nothing else besides that. And so it's a weird paradox that we live in.
Definitely, yeah. Like, we literally live in some kind of paradox generating machine or reality, or how you would call it. And I also like kind of the idea of that. Yeah, if you go deep enough into spirituality, at some point you could also say it becomes a bit like a science, like the secret science. Like, you can really dissect certain laws about reality. And that is also where science actually came from studying spiritual concepts and alchemy. And yeah, that's like really where the science was born. But then also, like, if you go deep enough into science, like they go into quantum mechanics and all that stuff. And then at some point you see like, it starts to merge again a bit. And then it's like, okay, it's actually like a little bit the same. And then also the idea that science is also just like you could say like objective measurements and all these things, but it is also just the dream of God that says like these are kind of like the
rules,
the mechanisms that reality is governed by. But you can imagine that in infinite consciousness, there could also just be like rules that are completely different.
Yeah.
Just like by the
just the rules of the reality that we seem to experience.
Yeah.
And still, like, are they always, the same? It's changed. It looks like it sometimes, but like, are they really? Like, I don't know. It's just such a fluid thing. Like in a dream, it's so much more fluid. And like, your friend in the dream can become your lover suddenly, or suddenly it's your mom or whatever it is, right? So it's like, people like a shift from the different roles in your dream. And you're in your room, in your bedroom, and then suddenly you're on the beach, or, it's like, it's immediately shifting. So and here it's just like, it's more solid. We can talk this, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, like it gives like it is actually quite nice to have something solid. Yeah, because if you're always in this dream, like sort of psychedelic state, then it's a little bit overwhelming, I guess.
Yeah. After a while, you're really like, oh, okay, like not nice that things are solid.
It's solid and it's just vibrating at a very slow pace or something or whatever. That's why it's solid.
That you wake up and then you're still the same person.
Oh yeah.
It's not like suddenly changing. You never prove that's like the funny thing also.
You just wake up and you have memories that's what you did yesterday.
And that's also the paradox in that.
Yeah.
But let's just say, like, from a human perspective, it seems like you're still it's the same or not a character. Like, okay, you can still have that. I've had this experience when I maybe went back to the Netherlands and went to like a certain city like Haarlem where I used to live.
Yeah.
And then I kind of had the feeling like I wasn't there like for maybe like 8 years or something like that. Oh, like I changed so much. It's like completely different person, but also still completely the same.
Yeah.
I had that feeling, like really, it's still like the same awareness, that feeling. It's a bit like, okay, like, I'm just like completely different person, like leveled up a couple times, but then still exactly the same.
Okay, so let me give you the other polarities that I sometimes look at myself when I was really young.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that was me, sort of.
Oh, yeah, that's also fun.
But like, really, was it? Like, yeah. It's so long ago, and like it's so different from that's funny because I also recognize the feeling you just described. That sometimes I'm also like, that was me. Sort of people say that was me.
Yeah.
There's photos. I guess it was me.
Yeah.
But it's so.
I also had blonde hair back then.
So, yeah, it's also now I'm bald. So Yeah, definitely. Maybe it's the hair. It could be the hair.
Yeah, that's quite funny when you see childhood. Video.
Do you feel the same or not?
I recently my mom and dad and my sister, or especially my sister, she recorded some of the videos that my mom and dad made when we were really young, because these were all on these old cassette tapes, like these big tapes.
Yeah.
And
those are nice.
I digitized them now, and then I could watch some of these videos. And there was one video where my parents brought me to the zoo. And there I was as a little kid, and I was so hyper. Like I was like running like the whole everywhere, like, oh, monkeys, oh, olifant, which is like elephant in Dutch, like all these things. And my parents always said like you were like very, very busy kid, like very hyper, like always like almost So then I also had that feeling like, oh, was that me?
Yeah.
But then I could also, to be honest, like connect to that part that was still a bit more like that.
Okay.
Because there is also a part in me that is very initiating, but it just got maybe tempered down by some other energies. But back then it was just
experiences,
free for all, basically,
That's interesting. Like, I would be funny to see you like that, because I mean, you're quite collected and like you're not all over the place. Let's say definitely. Yeah. But people can change also. I feel like life experiences, like astrology
that plays a role.
Yeah. But things change, and like I think what really connects us both on this journey, because we have a business together, we're traveling, we're actually living in the same apartment together, is that we are both always looking to change.
Definitely.
We are constantly busy with change. Like we're sort of addicted to change. I mean, in a way, we're also sometimes maybe afraid of it. That's the other polarity, because everyone has that aspect probably.
Yeah.
But like we are looking to grow, and like we're always thinking about how do we make this experience better? How do we become better people? Like that's, our daily talks are about feedback to each other about, oh, I discovered this thing. Oh, how are you doing this? Like, and I think that sometimes I see people and many people don't have that.
They don't like to learn, actually. They lost that love.
I think they beat it out of them.
Yeah, they like.
I think that it was like, like school or their parents or something. Like, because probably as a child you're curious about this world.
Yeah, what is
right? Like you're those big eyes and you're looking like, what is this? All these lights and everything, and you see like a little baby and it's not ruined yet. And then, I think at some moment it's like, sit down, shut up. And like, it's just like, you have to do this in this way. And they force you to do everything. Like everything, I mean, you could say like, it's not like with guns or like in that sense, but they're like, it's either you do this or go to your room. That can be with parents. I mean, my parents were quite good, but let's say that is a tendency that, you can get punished or something. And then in school, it's like, you either do this, you either read, like, or you either say what's in this book correctly in the tests, you get a good grade or a bad grade, or else you're a bad little boy or girl, and so that way, because you're so forced in that sense, I think because of the force, it starts to not be fun anymore.
That's the thing, yeah.
Like to really work on yourself, and maybe some people they do develop a passion for something, but often they don't do that with the rest of the things in life. Like somebody can really be passionate about drawing, but then not care at all about like what is healthy food, or how do you speak to people, or these basic things that I think, why don't you study everything that you deal with on a daily basis to do it better? Yeah. Like it's crazy that you don't do that.
What are the important things? Yeah, also like just as a guy that you're like, okay, at some point you can learn how to become better with women. Like, people who've studied that to great extent, and then you can learn from them. And then it's like, yeah, why not? Like it's such an important area.
You shouldn't do that. And then they're standing with their beer, their chest, and just watching around. I mean, it's okay if you don't want to go and talk to girls, but if you do want that. Yeah. And then you're criticizing someone else for sort of learning about it and kind of reading something about it or watching a video about it. It's your own sort of, I don't know, you're ashamed to actually admit that you might not be good at that aspect of life.
Yeah.
And then you're just judging the other person. You're projecting that shadow, that unconscious, the repressed part onto the other person.
And that's what happens a lot. That's like really the definition of how haters, who create haters treated, because they're usually afraid to go out of their own comfort zone. I think that's also an important part of like maybe if you study certain things that is already outside of the comfort zone, and are you willing to change your paradigm on the world? Because sometimes you can learn certain things maybe about the world, or about even spirituality or other things that can take you a bit down like sort of a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So there can also be a part of the unconscious mind that just wants to keep the status quo. And I think that happens with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's also one big thing. Yeah.
Also, for example, that, if you study what's going on in the world in different ways, at some point it can be quite dark if you really admit that. But then people are not willing to even go there because they want to keep the rose-tinted glasses. Like, okay, the world is like,
because it's good. It's scary today. But also what you said, like, I think also it's sometimes admitting to yourself
that you were wrong.
That you were wrong. And that's where you have that guilt, sort of guilt element, the guilt and shame wounds.
Oh,
is basically tied to the core wound of people, which is the fear that I'm not enough. And usually that wound comes through some experience in childhood, like where you just felt that shame and that guilt. And then you sort of, as a little child who knows nothing, you had this conclusion of, oh, that must mean I am bad.
Yeah.
I am not good enough. And then sort of when something confronts you with it, like admitting that you might not know everything about a subject or not the most skilled at something or whatever, you're like, the easy thing is to just, no, that person is bad or they are weird.
Yeah, they are weird.
And then sort of, but that's that own part of yourself that actually would want to do that.
Yeah.
You have to then admit to yourself that you're not, maybe you're not the best at that, or maybe you had it wrong, a little wrong, and then you're a bad or little boy or girl. So you try to push that away, even to yourself, probably. Like, that's the whole thing. You can be unconscious of that thing. You sort of, that tries to pop up, and then you're like, no, those people are bad.
Yeah. It's just a how could somebody that like has that, or maybe has the idea, maybe I would have that. How could they kind of work with that?
I think to first realize that it's not your fault. That's like one of the core things to realize if you want to love yourself, is that
Definitely
nothing is really your fault. Like you can, from a sort of a spiritual or a human value level, of course you can make a mistake, right? Like, and then you could say that's your fault. Well, you were responsible, sort of. So you might have fucked something up, but it doesn't say anything about your value. Like whatever happens in the moment is what happened. Like, because like your level of consciousness at that level was the way it was. You've had the history in your life of your upbringing and everything that led up to that moment. And then something in you decides to do that certain action or say that thing or do something like that. And even if you knew better, like the next moment you're like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. You did it. So it's a funny, and that just sort of happened from that perspective. And so you can course correct in the moment. Yeah. In the moment, you can say, well, I learned from this mistake. I'm going to do something better. But as a frame also for yourself, it's not helpful to say, like, it's my fault, and to be ashamed, guilt, and blame. And like, it's just that you're holding then on to this energy that says that you are not good. Yeah. And so you don't have to be afraid of admitting that something in the past was wrong, but the ego is like, no, I should always put up this front that I'm this perfect person. And like, because you identify with that person that did something wrong. And then you're like, so I rather not sort of admit it, that maybe something was, I can do something better now. Yeah. I just push that away and then act like I
polarize to the other side. Yeah. It's like the classic example of a man that only wants to be strong.
Yeah.
And then, be very macho and very masculine. But then, if they can never go into their weakness, they're actually not that strong. Yeah. So that also plays a role here. Like, then a push away like guilt and shame and all these things.
Yeah.
And then they can actually, really rule you from your unconscious mind. But then people can put up such a front to the outside world that they seem very confident and that they are very confident. But, after enough personal and spiritual growth, you start to see those people also they seem very confident. And in a sense, you could say they are, but you can feel that there is like a thing, that they're playing a little bit of an evidence. Yeah. But maybe at some point they can like go into that other side. Because I do think that what you're saying, like the shame and the guilt and all these things and not feeling good enough, it's also okay if you even feel that, because everybody feels that. So it's actually like the acceptance of that actually creates that you feel more good enough. Because what is more good enough than that you can accept your feelings of not being good enough?
Yeah,
that is like,
by the way, we cannot really see your face sometimes. So
I was also a bit like, I don't know. That was in the back of my mind from the start. Yeah, so I was a bit like, how shall I do it? Like, shall I do it like this? Like,
I don't know. I'm also a little bit playing with it. Yeah, you have to kind of still keep the thing near your mouth.
So shall I sit a bit like this? Yeah, maybe this is good. I think maybe this is a bit like this. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But what was the last thing you were saying? That's overcompensation.
Overcompensation, but also the idea that, let's say you would not feel good enough, or like, because everybody does. Like, what is more healing and more going into self-love than embracing that feeling? Yeah, but that is the thing that people run away from.
And the admitting, wait, I also have this sort of weak side to me.
Yeah.
Or, this side that's afraid of people, or wants to be seen and like feels unloved, or, and it's so interesting what you said, because that is like, it's this often that sort of part that feels this inadequacy in some part in life is the reason that person is in pursuit of that other thing in life.
Success.
And so it's like, I'm afraid of this, so I run away from that, and that drives me to overcompensate, overpolarize into the other polarity, and to fully go into this, I'm this strong, masculine, and like, and then hopefully at some point you learn that wait, like that is not actually true strength or true confidence, because you actually have to be okay with that weaker side of yourself. And when you are okay with that side, then first of all, you don't feel the need to constantly prove that to everyone that you're this, and you can just relax more. And that is true self-esteem. That is true confidence. But it's with everything. Like it's also like if you're so much in pursuit of sort of wealth or wanting to be successful, you're probably very scared of not being that. And so you have to kind of be okay with not being that, to have like an easier life, to be more relaxed. Yeah.
And the funny thing is that, if you talk about polarity, which we will probably talk a lot about it here on the Others podcast, is that there's a big realization I had like in the past year and year and a half, that like the polarity that you want is actually hidden in the thing that you think you don't want. So, for example, like let's say you are alone and you want to be very connected to somebody, maybe a lover or like a girlfriend or like friends or something like that, and you feel alone. But there is also connection in aloneness, because when you are alone, what is this trying to teach you? Like you are alone. Okay, now you can connect to yourself. So there is actually connection. But if you ignore that fact, then you can't see that, because the yin is hidden in the yang and the yang is hidden in the yin. So actually when life is maybe giving you struggles or pain or all these things, you feel not good enough. So if you have the guts and the courage to actually go into that and go feel that completely, like where do you end up? Then it is actually that feeling that you want, which is self-love.
Yeah.
And also maybe the idea of, maybe like ugly and beauty. So, okay, like if you go into your ugliness or something like that and feel like certain parts, then also that makes it also beautiful. Because like you decide,
I mean, sometimes even when you see someone who has like a certain flaw and then owns it fully and actually sort of makes that like prominent, or like, it can actually become its greatest strength.
Then it becomes a benefit. Yeah. I look at maybe Hasbulla or one example.
Yeah, for instance,
Or I saw that guy like that doesn't have any or really lag, that only thing. Yeah, it's a personal.
Because how have you ever seen a motivational speaker without any legs? And like, suddenly like everyone wants to see that. So it actually then, if he owed, or he could have been like, I have no leg, my life is over, I can't be a motivational speaker anymore. Well, actually, probably you're more successful now because you want to have legs. So doesn't mean you should cut off your legs. Don't do that. No. That's not really medical. We need like a disclaimer in this podcast. I don't know. Like also these views are always, there's always another layer.
So we should maybe integrate something like that at some point. Always think for yourself. Never black and white.
These are just for educate or like entertainment purposes.
Entertainment. But I do think like that's like a very profound thing, because then also the thing, like if you look at the light, go into your darkness. Can you embrace darkness completely? Well, okay, that makes you light.
Yeah.
That is actually the thing that creates more light. But if you ignore the darkness within and the darkness in the world that you say that you don't want, then unconsciously you are one of the people that is actually contributing to that in some kind of way, even if it's just...
So that's the last thing you said?
Yeah, a bit like the idea of, let's say you have a lot of people in the world that are like, no, I don't want to look at the darkness and maybe some conspiracy things and go into that rabbit hole and just learn actually like, okay, the world is very, very good in some sense, but also very, very bad. And there's a lot of evil people that do evil shit. Okay, can you look at that? But then it's like, no, I don't want to look at that. That's not true.
No, that's just crazy conspiracy theories. Okay.
Yeah, so
have you ever actually fully looked into that and not just with a confirmation bias?
Yeah.
Like just like, suddenly there's a Snopes article. Okay,
no, it's okay.
Or you saw one crazy conspiracy thing that made no sense, which there are a lot of.
Yeah.
But then you sort of equated that to all the other ones, which, might be true. So it's...
And then, like the main point was like, then you're actually contributing to it, but people are unaware that they're actually doing it. Because if it was completely seen and
through their ignorance, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. If it was completely seen and completely known, then it could not exist.
I mean, that's like something that was, for instance, like very scary with the whole sickness that was going around. That obviously should name it by name. That is sickness, in the 2020s, or don't say that. Yeah, like this illness that was going around. That's like these normal people, normal everyday people started to sort of shift sometimes into these crazy people, so afraid, like wanting to have their mask on all the time. Some people even swimming with masks in the sea, or like, how many crazy videos we've seen, like of children having to be, playing musical instruments in little tents, and like, people seeing their dying father or something through like some like plexiglass or like whatever, like hugging them with plastic. Like, my God, man, like people were lost their freaking minds.
Definitely.
And like but sometimes the dangerous part is like, these are everyday people, and sort of they were perpetuating this sort of extreme control that was put over the world, and they were becoming agents of the matrix. It's sort of like, look at that person, they're not distancing or putting on a mask, or this type of behavior. And yeah, so often the darkness, this evil, is not just outside in some weird person that controls everyone.
Definitely.
But it's basically what people engage is through ignorance as well.
Your own shadows. Yeah, it's like the shadows of people here.
Yeah, I mean, then that's how wars and, like why people support those things and stuff. It's their own darkness. That is, so it's very easy to point fingers at, sort of powerful people, which of course we can also do. But at the same time, are you looking in the mirror? Because that is why these things are there, is because there's not a collective of people and not enough people actually becoming conscious of it and no longer participating in that type of behavior, or, no longer listening to that type of control. And yeah, so we have the power. That's,
Definitely. Yeah. And you could also say that the things that are happening and that have happened and that are still going to happen, they are also the opportunities for more and more people to actually wake up, to see that in the world, and then to see like, okay, you know what, these people are not the authorities. I am my own authority. That enough people really go within, like, I am the authority.
Yeah.
And I can decide what I do with my life, and not some person in government or like a priest, some doctor or some billionaire who, does certain things. But then, really see like you have the responsibility. But that also, of course, has drawbacks, because a lot of people are maybe a little bit more inclined to like, oh, just outsource that to another person. Because that's the same of like the equivalent. Yeah, you do need to have some kind of inclination to personal growth and really looking honestly to yourself to really then claim, okay, you know what, I am responsible for creating my own world. But a lot of people, they outsource that to politicians. Oh, Trump will fix all the problems, or this person will do it.
Yeah.
But what about you? Like, you are just as powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. While you were saying that, I was sort of connecting that to, there's of course probably a part of this has to do with this guilt and this shame. Sort of like, because taking responsibility, if you still operate in this paradigm that something can be your fault, then you're also scared of making mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're also scared of admitting when something went wrong. And so there's a lot of responsibility, especially when other people are so it's like, oh, no, just let those people do it. Let them take the blame if something goes wrong. That's so, because else I get confronted with this little side of myself which actually believes I'm not good enough. Yes. And then sort of that you're so afraid of looking that in the eyes and sort of admitting that might be true, which is actually not, but you're scared of it. And that's why you push that away. So it's interesting, because that might be also one of the reasons of why people actually find it very easy to just follow. Just follow what the science says. It's, that's because you were also earlier equating like, science and spirituality. And I was also thinking about, but what is science? Because some people also see science sort of as this black or white religion. Like,
it's almost like
this is the science. The science is settled. No, science can never be settled. The whole purpose of science is that it's always a hypothesis which you can disprove, right? So it's just
that's really funny. Actually.
So you're not even adhering to your own philosophy. You don't even understand what the philosophy is.
You just use it because it's like a convenient argument to push your own agenda and or enforce the worldview that you have at that moment. But there's also a lot of scientists that maybe disagree with your point. But then you have kind of like, it's like mainstream science.
Yeah, just the mainstream. And that is the mainstream. But because, it's just easy to believe in that. And then you're a good person. Because then it always goes back to what sort of authorities or experts do you believe in?
Yeah.
And if you sort of want to be this good person and you sort of fear being ostracized by the group, then you go with sort of the majority view. Like you go with what they taught you in school, what was on the television, like, what the teacher said. Like what the doctor said, and then
they know it better than you.
Yeah, so you can never. There's always this weird, such a weird thing that it's not weird. I understand it, but I don't even have words for it. It's just the fact that people can always be like, yeah, but you never studied that in school, or like if you don't have the degree, you have the right to say anything about it. Like, that's so dumb.
Yeah, it is.
It means that you cannot study it yourself, that you cannot sort of apply logic and like do research, read books, like whatever. But no, because you need to go through the selected sort of propagandized institutions that sort of tell you then but what is right or wrong. God forbid you yourself came to a certain conclusion by reading something, like, no, trust you.
And like that's like of course like the classic example. If you go to a doctor in the current medical system that we have, they are so clueless. They're like absolutely clueless about like so many things. Like they maybe can help you if you have a broken leg and stuff. They're quite good at that. But like really looking at the nitty gritty of how like actually metabolism maybe works and how health really works, and certain things that you would have to take in the form of certain foods or supplements. And that is actually like the danger that these people like, you just can only study medicine or like this very specific thing and then it's an expert.
Yeah.
But it's not really an expert if you don't have also the broad knowledge and can tie that to a lot of different things. And I think that is actually something that we are quite good at, because we study a lot of different things, and Hol is also able to connect that a little bit more. And then you have a more holistic understanding of what is actually going on, instead of just, it's just like you need to take this pill to fix your problem. Yeah, okay, but like, what is the root cause of your illness?
I don't know, just take it like the rest of your life. And
like, how did people even, start to believe that is like the solution? It can help for a certain
question it. And not question it. Like, I remember like when I was younger, that's sort of the paradigm that I was sort of fed through society, or was just that when you get sick, it's just something that just happens to you.
Yeah,
it's sort of genetic or something. Like, of course, genes do play a role, but like, no look at lifestyle and also the food and sleep, and like, it's just like it's almost never mentioned. And it was just like, that it just happens to you. Yeah, it's sort of unlucky.
And then it's so easy. Just take this pill.
Yeah, of course, you can sometimes have something happen to you, but there are causes to it. And it's actually empowering to look at them, because it means that you probably can change something. And, it's sort of this victim mentality. Something just happens, and the only thing I can do is go through the normal medical system and just have some pill prescribed to me by this doctor, who often also gets money for prescribing that certain pill. Involving those companies, especially in America. I think they have it in the Netherlands too a little bit, but and so he's incentivized often to even give you the pill, and then often it doesn't solve the root cause. It's just something that suppresses a symptom. But it's normal. This is people don't question it. And it's something that's like, these things we're swimming in this kind of weirdness. And people don't question it. I mean, we do, and there's other people who question it.
Yeah, definitely.
But in general, that attitude is often that people have never even thought about it.
And how did that came to be, like this kind of system? Maybe that's also an interesting...
what is the root cause here?
How did this system...
This was set up by the Rockefellers. And so, I would have to go, if we really want to go...
we have to do all details, but...
Yeah, so this was just by sort of... They wanted they probably wanted to have people addicted at first to their sort of pills or medicine that they
definitely
and petroleum based, because they were into oil, and so they funded certain universities and said, like, you can only practice this or teach people this type of medicine. And back then there were other holistic ways of treating people with natural things. And they suppressed all that and said, that's all pseudoscience quackery. And so if we gave you all this money, so we have a say now, that's how they bought control, basically. And they made this the dominant way of looking at treating your health.
At health. Yeah, and it's a good business model. It works. They made a lot of money. Like from a business perspective, it's kind of figure it's just like only business. Of course, business is not only trying to take from people, but just making money and having you have this problem. Well, you have to take this pill for the rest of your life. Can you imagine how much money they made with that?
Yeah, sure.
And then, if you have that amount of money, then you start to do some crazy things because you have so much power and so much money and all those things. And just looking at that also, just the history of that kind of like medical system, that makes you doubt even more that it is actually the way to go.
Yeah.
Just that's also a thing, that's okay. You not only look at how health works, but how is even the system that, is now so prevalent. How did it even came to be? So if you know more about that, you can already make a more holistic, informed decision of what is health or not. But if you go to a doctor in any hospital, they would not know this. Because otherwise they probably wouldn't even work in the normal medical field, at least some,
I mean, it's also something, sometimes some people can sometimes hear about something and that doesn't register. Or they don't want to go into it. And this is where we again go to this thing about you're sort of daring to go somewhere.
That's also your identity.
Yeah. For instance, if you're a doctor, you studied all these things.
Yeah. And I don't want to let that go.
Let's not say there is value. They have Western medicine. We're not bashing the world. There's always polarity. So that's to be clear. Sometimes, but I mean, the whole premise of, what it's based on is faulty. And so, what if you've been studying this your whole life, and then some guy in a podcast is like, hey man, did you know the Rockefellers set that up and that it's all based on petroleum and blah blah? They're just wanting to keep people sick and customers for life, and then you're like,
that's not true. Yeah.
Oh yeah, conspiracy, this, that. Look around. This is the main thing. Everyone's doing it, so it must be good.
Might be good.
The majority, this sort of argument of the majority, and then but because you cannot even go there.
Yeah, because it will destroy your entire idea.
Oh, this was all a lie? Of course, if you would be able to depolarize it, it would be, it has benefits to learn things. Maybe you can now use your knowledge and change it a bit and make it better. But that, it confronts you with that thing that you might be bad. Oh, wait, you had it wrong. You built your whole identity around a faulty concept that was anti-human instead of pro-human, which it pretends to be.
Yeah. And that's the interesting point, because that's how people in power, or people that have a lot of power in this world, that's how it operates. It's not outwardly dark and very evil. It is they try to use the good for the bad.
Yeah.
So it's the same, with a lot of things in this world, of course, you want to be a good person, so you put on your mask. You want to be a good person, so we all have to take care of climate change and all these things, and that's all other rabbit hole. But so that's how it operates. And maybe one point also about the health is also that it's so interesting that of course, like sometimes maybe a certain pill can help, but then not looking at the root cause. And I can remember when we were looking more, into trauma, we did a virtual summit about trauma healing, that actually like the experience of trauma, the more you have that in your life as maybe a kid, that really sets you up for, getting a lot of chronic conditions and like a lot of health problems. And it was very correlated, like how the more trauma you had, the more chronic illnesses you would develop, let's say a bit later in life, like in adulthood. And so then it's already like, it's also, it's not only like a physical.
It's not physical. It's only not like just your food or not just your sleep. Yeah, but also the things you experience go within that, your emotions and not feeling your emotions, which is often a case for that, or being very stressed all the time. And so it's you have to kind of look at it holistically. That's the thing. And even in medicine, it's hard. But like, there's many things like, and of course it's a study. Like it's not something that you can just immediately grasp all, but that's the journey. But then I think like, even if you look in medicine, then often they have experts. So somebody's they only know about the liver. Or this person only knows something about. So strange. And of course, it can be helpful to have someone who is an expert in a certain body part. Yeah. But to have that person just treat you when this whole thing is a holistic system. That is, so where's the holistic, that's nice doctor in the liver. But is that just, can you just look at that solely with like this sort of binoculars or this looking glass at the liver? Or do you have to take this whole holistic person into account, not even just physically? Also, there are the traumas, also this thing spiritually. Yes. What is their astrology doing at this moment? Or there's so many layers to that. But you don't see like the holistic doctor department in most hospitals. That's like, but I know like the intricacies of all the things that are working together. And that's just an interesting thing. And I do think that's also, one thing that also does really connect us, because we are like, this is like an interesting new thing. Let's learn about this thing, Yeah, you learn about meditation. Let's do meditation. You learn about maybe pickup, and you learn how to meet girls. And then it's like, okay, like manifestation, interesting. Okay, but there's also this thing, like more occult. Let's do some things with that, CK. Yeah, magic with CK. And let's try that. Let's do some rituals. And that's kind of like, I sometimes think that some people, they skydive and stuff, and they do all kinds of crazy stuff. This is kind of what we do. There's like a new thing, and like, okay, let's learn this like new personal and spiritual growth thing, and be okay with the fact that it might seem a little bit crazy. Yeah, then but have you tried it? Like sometimes something can be like that there's not so much value there, or that it is a little bit crazy, or there are people who believe crazy things in that realm or whatever the fuck. But that's more like also that, who cares? Like just have that radical open mind. To be able to just put your own personality or your ego sort of aside and sort of like, I've never seen this before. Let's check it out. Like, let's just see what it's like just a little bit, and see if there's some value there. And often if you have that inclination, there's probably some value there. And definitely. Also often I think if you have some resistance, there's probably some value there. That's a very good point. Because there is some sort of a resisting element that is like, and I think that's also what I was going to say, because we were talking about how hard it is to start a normal conversation. Like we now started this podcast. It's like, and I was also reminded that I want to reread the book also, I think, soon again. It's this, The War of Art. Even a Pressfield, and he talks about resistance, and not this this resistance to actually doing the work that you're supposed to do, and sort of your creative sides and then he says like the more the shadow is cast, the more resistance there is, so the more actually you should be doing it. like a truth, but more that's where the value is, sort of. So sort of like there is an internal resistance against your own greatness, against actually doing what your soul is calling you to do. And then you can kind of put it off or there's something. And we've put off this podcast a lot, even though we go for our dreams. But like with this thing, it was just,
certain situations. And
but it's also easy. Maybe when you haven't done it, like it feels like more work and intense energy to sort of set it up, put yourself in this chair and now do this. Even though, it's just a normal conversation. We've had so many of these. We've had thousands of podcasts that were never recorded. So finally we have a camera here and and they have some people to watch it and technical issues, Oh yeah, those two. That's true. We manifest those because of our internal resistance.
That's very interesting. Yeah. I think that's a very good point. Like on the one side, you can have like the resistance to something new or the next level or something like that. And then there can be like also the addiction to the current thing and trying to stay in that mode that you at the moment have. And that can literally be like biological, like there's literally like hormones that get activated that create certain states, and you're more addicted to that. Like people that are addicted to being a victim, that's actually like a biochemical state that they're more addicted to. And there is also identification, and then like you just keep that that alive basically.
Mm-hmm.
But then the interesting thing is like how can you break through that resistance? I think we are reading like a very interesting book. It's called like 10x is easier than 2x.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the idea is that Benjamin Hardy. And then basically the idea is that you ask yourself certain questions or set such high goals that are 10x. So it really disrupts your current mode of thinking and like just like normal linear growth. And then you can actually think of certain solutions to actually create that 10x growth. And then it actually becomes easier than the 2x. That's kind of like the premise of the book, because you really expand your mind of what is possible. Like people that stay their whole life in a 9-to-5 job. I just need this to pay the bills and all these things. But then, I can remember when I first saw like some people on the internet and they're like, they're making like money on their laptop. Whoa, like they can actually have like a location independent business. And then there's some kind of internet marketer that said like, that's like, you can just follow my system and it's very easy. And then I'm like, awesome, and then just try a couple things. And then, we both quit our job at some point and then just start this thing. And
was it that easy as that guy made it seem?
No, it was definitely not. And then I also think that our soul's journey had to be a little bit different than maybe some other people. But there could have also been that it was a bit easier, but it went how it went.
Yeah, exactly.
And that also has benefits. And that is also why certain bad things sometimes happen to people in life and like to yourself, because life is trying to grow you or prepare you or make you better, and that you can actually become the person that you are meant to be.
Yeah.
But that not only comes from, life is so good and there's no challenge or something like that.
Yeah. It's also interesting what you said about the 2x is 10x is better than 2x book. That's sort of, so when you set that high goal, it makes you, it opens up a different way of thinking. I think that's the interesting part about it, like the radical open-mindedness, but how are you still stuck thinking about your goals even? Like, what if you put a higher goal, then maybe there's a whole other paradigm that is you're used to these sort of rules and sets of rules of looking at reality, looking at your life. But if you then put something that's outside of that, like a goal, then you can kind of start open up like, wait, like now to achieve that, you have to go out of this realm.
Yeah.
Sort of open up what other possibilities are there of looking, of perception, of looking at the situation. And then it forces you to think like that. I think that's a very powerful idea.
Definitely. And it's still something that if I speak for myself and also for you, I just learned this. Then I can also start to apply this more and more, because I do think that was maybe, at least one of the reasons that maybe sometimes with our business, we couldn't take it to a higher level, because there are maybe still, like it's more like 2x thinking sometimes. And also sometimes from necessity, because we just needed to make money and we just need to pay the rent and all these things.
Look at it from two sides again, right? Yeah.
And then maybe it was also, because it was meant to be that way, because we can, really learn something from that. Like we learned kind of like the idea of polarity and really balancing both polarities through our business struggles. I would say like that's like 100% definitely one of the important catalysts. And then also, business, sometimes people say it's like so easy and everything. But it like just takes hard work, it's like really like a marathon, be very consistent. And then there's maybe another side that's like, okay, like, can I also allow it myself to that it's also,
are you worthy of it being easy?
Yeah, so that's also funny.
But I think maybe the thing that we can still talk about for maybe a last few
minutes
is that how we sort of came across this sort of, how did we learn about this polarity thing? Because like, that's like in our business relationship and friendship, like we are very similar in a way. If people sometimes could look at us and they could say, well, you're very similar. You're into the same type of things. You have a business together. You're doing a lot of things together and everything. But at the same time, we are opposites. So there, it's like the yin and the yang. Like we are very, very different.
Very different.
And we look at reality very differently. And so I think like we often had it that I would be like, oh, let's do this. Or it's a new thing. This is a new thing. Let's do this. And you would be sometimes like,
no.
What if we do it like this? We were already doing it like this or something.
Like, and stick to the plan. There's like a structure. Like, okay, we decided like, let's build this business.
Yeah.
And let's follow this plan.
Yeah.
And then Julian would say like, oh, but there's like a new way that would maybe make it a lot easier. Yeah, I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, we were just doing this. Let's stick to the plan.
Yeah, the stand of the plan.
And both polarities are very valuable.
If
one is in the extreme and the other is in the extreme, you're stuck, like you're not really progressing.
That's the thing.
So you need both. But for us, it has been like sort of to understand that this is not just a personality thing. No, there's always these two poles,
energies,
these magnetic sort of, they also can polarize each other. So that if I am very, very polarized in my stance that no, we should do it like this, then if you are already inclined to a little bit more want the other, you start to want that other side so much more and start to argue. And this is also how arguments between people happen, or this is how wars. And like people are like, no, this is better. No, this is better. And then you're like, these energies are they're like, like charging each other up, and then suddenly there's an explosion.
Yeah.
And so for us, it often go to like a big explosion because we're
with friends and we could always navigate it.
We didn't kick each other's ass, but like this was this like sort of the battle between these polarities. And at a certain moment, we're like, wait a minute, what if we just let it a little bit more free? Like what?
I can let you free and what you want to
and is there value in the other side? What if I put my side aside for a second and just go into your side? So what are the benefits of what you are trying to, what you want or what you're proposing? And then you doing that with me. And then often we would sort of depolarize. This is like what depolarization, what we mean by that is like you if you are stuck in one, you go into the other side. You start to see like, what is it like? And then it's like, okay, wait, like we can just sort of harmonize it more, or
definitely,
or you can still pick one, but then you sort of know what the benefits and drawbacks of it are, and you're no longer so much like
identified to it. Oh, this is like the best way, yeah, and that's actually funny. Like the thing that, maybe the person now listening to this, I can really try to notice that it's actually like an energetic feeling.
Yeah.
So it is not only like a mental concept that we're talking about, but literally you can talk with somebody that has maybe a different viewpoint than you. And then if you are more attached to that, or that other person is more attached to their viewpoint, then you will start to feel this energy build up. And then the art is then to try and be aware of that energy in your own body, and then to still be present with the other person, and then to try and learn, like, okay, what is this part of consciousness maybe trying to teach me? Because we are swimming in an ocean of polarity and energy, but that comes also, of course, in the form of other people that are like, just coming into your reality, into your experience. And there is a new polarity that appears. So what can you learn from that? What can they learn from you?
Don't start judging it immediately. Like, like, oh, no, this is bad. So no, like, is it trying to teach you? Like, oh, are you stuck in this one? Maybe what if you because the growth is always on the other side. And, so like, that's a good lesson. I don't think to like maybe something like that somebody could, experiment with to just sort of see like, where am I sometimes really a little bit stuck in just one-sided view of reality? Yeah. Or this is just my normal way of being. I'm always very irrational. Yeah. Or I'm always so emotional. Or very intuitive. Yeah, it's all like channeling my higher self. And we need both. Like, and like, so if you're very much always in this side, just try to explore the other side. You can always go back to your default mode. Yeah. But what if you try it for a week, for a month or something, just like to sort of try to set an intention to just do it the opposite way. Like, you're not going to die. No, like the worst case scenario is that you learn something, so it's like, often when you do that, you start to sort of integrate that part more, and then sort of you can go more into like a harmony, into sort of a more of a balance of those two energies, and see where you end up. Yeah.
And just to give a couple other examples, like let's say you're always very initiating, you take a lot of action, you set a goal and then you take a lot of action. Well, maybe you can come into contact with a part of you that, takes it a little bit more slowly and goes more into your intuition of what really feels right to do. That can be one way. Or normally maybe you're a very structured person. Like I can be quite structured and I make like plans and certain habits, and that's something I'm quite good at. But then it's also, can you also be a person that can also let that go and be very flexible and feel in the moment what you really want to do and things like that. And maybe if you go to your energy, very expansive. And like, new ideas and all these things. And then, can you also implement the ideas?
Yeah. Then not just go to the new idea like, because that can be my downside. Yeah, like I was discovering new things, new information. Oh, it's so awesome. And then, if I can, be busy with something and I kind of forget it because I'm like, oh, this new thing, look at this. Yeah. I'm like, oh, no, I should stay grounded. What if I just put some more energy in this and actually apply it? Because what is, knowledge or information worth if you don't apply it? But yeah, you can also get too rigid and like, you're so also in your known of this thing and you're like just doing these sort of steps always in a certain way. But what if there's a better way? What if you're closing yourself off to that? So, and just like, so we had to learn to embody each other's energy more and are still doing that. But yeah, that's with everything. Like, especially maybe when you're judging the other side, that there's definitely growth there. Because then you're pushing away that part that you are judging outside of you to another person. You're actually judging yourself because that's that part that is afraid to actually be acknowledged. And so probably if you start developing that and accepting that part of yourself, and then there is also this internal healing that starts that you get from that. Not even just by the concept itself, but just you are sort of suppressing that part within yourself.
Yeah, and that's actually like how personal growth happens, to go into the other polarity. Because you already know the thing that you are doing, and then can you also go into the other side and just explore and be radically open-minded, and then you can really integrate both sides of the polarity. And there we also come to what is the current name of the podcast, and kind of like a name that we thought of, which is then the third way. So it was not its showing name, so it might still change. So it's not only having intent and visualizing and doing all these things and trying to manifest your reality. It's also about letting go and going with the flow. it is not only about, being a very structured person and always, having a certain plan and then being super disciplined and never having a drink or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's also about that. Can you also sometimes let go and just have fun and let go of yourself with a rigid, like serial entrepreneur identity that can just
wake up at 4 a.m., ice baths.
Yeah. So like the point is like, there's of course millions of examples, but these are just a couple where, can you integrate them both? And that's the third way. That's more like the middle path and a more grounded way, expensive way.
And still being able to sometimes just go into the one polarity for a while.
Definitely.
But like if you're sort of doing that from this force because you're afraid of the other side or you're just neglecting the other side, then you haven't integrated it yet. Like if you're sort of more depolarized about both, but you still have a preference for one, so that's why you choose one. It's very different than that you're like, no, this is the best side, and you're so attached to it that you can't even for a moment go into the other side.
Yeah.
And so, that's, the whole thing. And the third way is sort of, there's another way. We don't need to always be in this polarized left, right, dark, light,
we're all looking at dark, right?
Yeah, that sort of paradigm, because that there is a third way. And that's sort of that we, feel like it's sort of our task to share. We have discovered this. We've talked about this so much. Almost nobody is talking about it in this way. Maybe nobody even, not in the way that how we perceive it, at least. And so, we just feel like that's something that might be needed in this world.
It can help.
It can help. And we won't force it on anyone, because that's also not true.
And discover for yourself.
It's probably the natural progression for humanity to hopefully sort of start to see that, so that we don't have to keep fighting each other so much all the time. And even the internally, like that are fighting yourself basically and pushing away all those parts of yourself. Then you can never go through true harmony and love. So, I think maybe that's a nice way to...
Yeah, definitely. Like one last point was like, when it becomes more like that you can go into this polarity and that polarity and discovers like new ones, then really personal and spiritual growth becomes like more like an art form. So it is really like, I'll try like this new thing and try like this new thing, because as a person you try to transcend polarity more, and then you can actually use it to your advantage instead of it being used against you. By social engineers and people who are in the know that understand these concepts, whether consciously or unconsciously. But that is how you play the masses, to get them inside a polarity. And then, that people are stuck there. So your freedom really lies in integrating more polarities. And then that can really take you to the next level.
100%. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That part about being controlled, you could even say that sort of you are, even if it's a person doing it or something, but still reality is actually then you're being controlled by reality, because you feel the need, this sort of pull is being like charged, like, and then you're like, okay, so then you're controlled. And like, so freedom comes through the other side. Yeah, that's also an interesting polarity, freedom and control. Okay, well, that was nice. That was nice. Yeah. Be nice. Take care.